of the night, whispers of deceit.
Shadows dance on the walls.
Secrets they repeat. A shadowed figure
with eyes full of light.
hiding truths in the shadows where no one dares to pry. Uncover the truth, let the lies come undone. Peel back the layers until the light is shown. Uncover the truth, let the shadows run. Break free from the chains and find the sun. Uncover the truth in the dead of the night, where secrets lie hidden like a whispered bite. Uncover the truth in the dim of the light, where betrayals...
Oh, shit. You can't resist. You love it.
The biggest mistake in the universe is giving you access to AI.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest mistake in the universe.
And you figuring out how to use it.
I'm the shortcut king to begin with. I'm a guy always looking to figure out how to do things faster to begin with.
It's work smarter, not harder.
Dude, I ran no huddle offense as a coach. I blitz. Yep. You know, like everything I think about is how can I go faster? You know.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it. But the production quality on the music that you're like, you could be a music producer right now.
Oh God!
Like you couldn't do any worse than Diddy. I mean, you know what works and what doesn't.
Diddy.
Yeah, we'll be.
He took hits from the '80s and they sound so crazy, and then he went crazy.
Well, he was always a little crazy, but
I'm sure he was.
We have a very special case on Bloodlines and Betrayals today. The Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer. I just happened to watch a documentary on Netflix about the Zodiac. It is unsolved to this day, and they are using... I thought it was good because they are using some AI to try to crack a few of his codes that he would send into police departments and the media that may reveal his true identity. So that is why I kind of thought it fit in, because you're the AI king and AI is being used now to track down, his possible identity from his coding, because he would put in these elaborate codes in his messages, and they called them cryptograms at the time, and they were coded, but they were sent to taunt the police department and the media, and they deliberately misspelled words and phrases to try to confuse them. So, I mean, it's a very old case. It's after the Black Dahlia case, but it gained notoriety across the country. And it was even linked being near me in Albany, New York, which I never knew.
Really?
So yes, which one of the suspects was in Albany, and he would send letters. So
where didn't it take place originally in California or something?
Yeah, it took place in San Francisco. It took place in San Francisco.
So how did they link it all the way back to somebody in New York?
Well, there were letters that were mailed to the Albany Times Union, and the one of the suspects was living there at the time. The first murders that were attributed to Zodiac, it all started in December of 1968. Betty Lou Jensen, David Arthur Faraday, 16, 17 years old. They thought this guy was like a loner and had never been with a woman, never got attention from women. So he had a hatred for couples and women, because back in the 60s and 70s, people would pull off on, a lover's lane.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, as it was called. And this is what happened.
We
Yeah.
found.
Yes. So this is what happened. They pulled up on a lover's lane, and a car passed them and noticed that they were there, and they passed them again, and then they were attacked. Their assailant parked the vehicle alongside the passenger side, and then he just shot into the car. And none of the shots hit the people. As they were exiting, Jensen or Faraday was exiting. He got shot, and the other one fled, and he was a bad shot. He fired 6 of them, and finally he got her down. One of them hit, and then he emptied the clip into him. And he only used a 22. That was the key evidence, was it was a 22 weapon that was used in all of the murders. So that was the first big mystery, because these were 2 high school kids. They had no enemies. They were just out hooking up and pulled off on Lover's Lane and got shot.
Right.
And then there was not another murder, I believe, until a year later. Over a year later. It was
almost a year later.
Oh, right. I'm getting,
because Darlene Ferrin and Michael.
Yes. Yeah, that was
Michael McGraw survived.
He was the only one to survive, and he was the only one that gave. Well, there was one other person that survived later on. He gave a pretty good description of what he saw. The killer, the Zodiac, had a flashlight that he approached the car with, so they thought it was a cop. They rolled the window down without speaking. He fired a 9mm pistol into the car. Yeah. And again, the door handle was removed from the car. They were kind of trapped in there. The assailant returned to his car, opened the door, and did something. And then Magoo exited the vehicle, and the stranger shot him and Farron 2 more times. And then he drove away. The perpetrator left no evidence. The teenagers that there were 3 teenagers that drove into the parking lot, saw the couple. The police arrived, and Magoo, who was shot in the head, survived. And he gave a pretty good description of a heavy-set white man around 5'8" and 200 pounds, with a large face and curly light brown hair. He wore dark clothes, and this time he wore no glasses. This was the crazy part. The Vallejo Police Department got a phone call from a payphone 2 blocks from their headquarters, and the man on the other line said, "I want to report a double murder." And he gave the location of where the kids were and the description of the car. And he said they were shot with a 9mm Luger. And I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye, and hung up. Serial killers will commonly pause to reflect on their actions, but this was somewhat unprecedented, that, there was a cooling off period for the Zodiac in between. And apparently many have speculated that Darlene Ferrin knew her killer. And this goes to the origin of Robert Graysmith. Robert Graysmith has done extensive research, and he authored the 1986 book Zodiac, which was it was cited in the documentary. the problem was Magoo gave conflicting accounts on whether Farron knew her killer. At the hospital, he stated that, he did not know the murderer. At another point, the assailant's name was Richard, he said. Farron's sister claims that one of her boyfriends was named Richard. So there was very confusing evidence going on. There were two different weapons that had gone on, but there was no connection between Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, the two that were murdered first. But they lived less than 2 blocks from Jensen, and they attended the same high school. And they were also familiar with Lover's Lane. So it was very plausible that the killer knew both of them. While the victims may not have known each other, the killer obviously knew them. So this is when he started sending in letters taunting the police, taunting the media. And it was August 1st, 1969. This was after the second attack. He sent in this cryptic letter. Well, no, there was a letter, and then he started sending cryptic letters sent into the Vallejo Times in San Francisco. And closed in all 3 letters was a different cryptogram. It was I bet you could probably figure it out. No. It was a 408 symbol. The writer claimed, "This is the cipher of my identity." He demanded the codes be printed on the newspaper's front page. If not, he threatened to kill more people. So he obviously wanted attention, and he wanted the adulation for being a serial killer. So again, on August 4th, he wrote another letter. So this kept going on, and the letters were sent to the FBI, the CIA. They were trying to decrypt these letters. They had a cryptologist, and they were only able to get a couple words out that may have been used. Kill appeared in the message. Many of the words were misspelled. He also referenced Richard Connell's short story, the most famous short story, The Most Dangerous Game. Zodiac explained killing was a way of collecting slaves for his afterlife. That was decoded, but not everything was decoded. So this is where it kind of gets confusing. It was September of 1969 at Pacific Union College. There were 2 students who were picnicking, and they noticed the man watching them. He emerged behind them. He had a black executioner's hood with clip-on sunglasses. He wore a bib, and he had the zodiac symbol on it. He brandished a gun, and the Zodiac told them that he escaped from jail after killing a guard and needed their car and money to travel to Mexico. So he bound them and threw them, and they thought that they were being robbed. So he took out a knife and he stabbed them. So he's used 3 different weapons. The only evidence left behind were footprints. He left behind footprints, and then he carved a symbol on the car door of one of the victims, and he left with a black felt tip pen, and he wrote behind it, Vallejo 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27th, 69, 6:30 p.m. by knife. So he listed the same thing. He listed all the killings, and 2 park rangers attended to the couple. I believe yeah, one of them was conscious and gave a detailed description of the attacker again. Unfortunately, one of them went into a coma, never regained consciousness. The other one, Hartnell, survived to recount the tale, and he gave an interview to the press. And then they noticed that earlier in the day, a suspicious man had been seen around that lake by several people. Several people said they saw him, a heavy-set man looking at him from a distance, and then he would hurry off. 3 women noticed him as well. So he's getting bolder. I don't think he's getting better at his killing. He's just getting more brazen to do it out in the open by a lake where there's many witnesses. So there was the last confirmed Zodiac murder took 2 weeks after this attack on the lake. The Zodiac took a cab that was driven by a medical student. He gave a destination, and when the taxi arrived, the killer asked to be driven another block, and then he shot the cab driver in the head, and he took his wallet and car keys. 3 teenagers witnessed the crime directly from a house on the street, and his face was clearly visible by the streetlight, and they watched him wipe down the vehicle, go through the guy's clothes, and he left by 2 partial fingerprints. And they called the police, but they obviously didn't get there by time. So then again, he called the police and taunted them, said that there's another murder you have to tend to. And he was smart enough to really, confuse them by, okay, it's Lover's Lane, then it's at a lake. Now this, he's trying to make it look like a robbery. And the composite sketch of the man was very consistent. The only thing that wasn't was whether or not he was wearing glasses, because in some he was, some he wasn't. So ever since then, he taunted police and the media about being active again, that he would kill again. And he sent these cryptograms, 300-character cryptogram. He sent it to the San Francisco Chronicle. He wanted it to be printed on the front page. It remained unsolved for 51 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's why now they're starting to have gradual breakthroughs on it. Because everyone's into true crime. Everyone is wants to be amateur sleuths.
Right.
Everyone has amateur podcasts like this where they talk about true crime and breaks it down and gives their opinion on it. So because there's tons and tons of people involved in trying to solve the case, they're making progress, but it's very, very slow. And he kept sending letters and letters through the 1970s.
Wow.
Yeah. Cryptologist proposed that he disclosed his identity as Alfred E. Newman, which was obviously wrong because it was the mascot of the humor magazine Mad. Right. Yeah. So they used computer science, and an engineering professor used a key to get the solution, Dr. Eat a Torpedo. That was an insult directed at D.C.B. Marsh, then the president of the American Cryptogram Association, who had publicly challenged Zodiac to reveal his name and one of his cryptologists. But he never did. In the same, he sent in another letter. He denied responsibility for the fatal bombing of San Francisco Police Department police station and the Golden Gate Bridge. He did say there's more glory to killing a cop than a citizen because a cop can shoot back. And he included a diagram of another school with a bus bomb, and he had the symbol of a zodiac, and he put the Zodiac 10, San Francisco PD 0. He mailed a greeting card to the Chronicle, and he wrote, "I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast." On the back of the card, the Zodiac threatened to use his bus bomb unless two things happens. The Chronicle should write about the bomb, and the people should wear some nice Zodiac buttons. This never happened. And again, he wrote letters and letters and letters and cards throughout the years. He never murdered again after 1969. So this is the one I was talking about. Many unconfirmed Zodiac letters were sent to the media. August 1st, 1973, a letter was mailed to the Albany Times-Union in New York. The return address was just the Zodiac symbol. The writer promised to kill again on August 10th. A 3-line code in the letter was supposed to reveal the name and location of the victim. The FBI was able to decipher the code, and they didn't reveal the name, but it said the name and Albany Medical Center. This is only the beginning. And then eventually, like, no murder matched the details in the letter. And the handwriting was not a definitive match for the Zodiac. So he was also suspected in other murders outside of California. Well, in California, but not the same location. Nobody really knew, except I believe it was this one. Raymond Davis was murdered in 1962. In 2019, the unsolved murder was connected to Zodiac when Christy Hawthorne, the director of the Oceanside Historical Society, was researching for another project. She stumbled upon Davis's murder for further research and dug up several parallels to the Zodiac killing. Davis's murderer prefigured Paul Stein. He was the victim by 7 years. Both cabbie murders involved wealthy neighborhoods. The ammunition was .22 caliber, which matches the Lake Herman road attack, the first that was ever documented. He used the .22, and the taunting of police with the threat against buses, blowing up buses, and foreshadowing the Zodiac. The Oceanside Police Department in 2019 began an inquiry, but they still haven't announced distinctively whether it was Zodiac. And then there's a bunch of other murders that allegedly could be Zodiac, because he wrote 10-0 when he sent the letter to the Albany Times-Union. So the Zodiac killer suspect that I think has the best resemblance to the description, and according to the documentary I watched, was this guy named Arthur Lee Allen. He was a former elementary school teacher. He was a convicted sex offender. And they interview, he dated a mother of 2 kids, and the kids were interviewed in the documentary, and they just said that he was a really weird, strange guy. He kept dead animals in his freezer, and he had guns, he had a knife. He had search warrants executed on his house over a 20-year period. They found pipe bombs in his house. They found guns in his house. They found knives in his house. But like the fingerprint didn't match the one that was left behind at one of the crime scenes. And he had written letters when he left the mother that he was dating. When the mother died, the kids found books and books of letters that he had written her. And they thought it was very, very weird, very strange. And they 100% believe that he was the Zodiac. And there's only, I think, 6 suspects that were credible. And, based on that sketch, it was very vague. The police department was inundated with 50 to 100 suspects who were named every year. Yeah, every year. And Arthur Lee Allen died young. I mean, he died when he was 58. And the creepiest part was he died holding a letter in his hand in 2000, and it was 1992, I believe he died.
Yeah, he did.
So he had the letter in his hand, and the police were because he was sick. They knew that he was close to the end, and they were hoping that the letter was a confession, and it was not. It was him again saying, "I am not the Zodiac killer. I had nothing to do with it," and he just professes his innocence. And unfortunately, all the evidence that they had tested against Allen turned out to be negative. So that is why it's considered the most famous unresolved murder case in American history. I would say that case and, the Black Dahlia would be the most famous unresolved. And, the Lindbergh kidnapping, I think they got the wrong people. But a cottage industry of zodiologists sprung up in the wake of the killings, which is like, I've talked about D.B. Cooper being the only successful skyjacking. D.B. Cooper sleuths have a convention every year where they meet and they go over the evidence and they try to figure out who was behind it. And then, dozens of books, documentaries have focused on Zodiac. The one that I thought was excellent was there was one in 2007. The guy that played the Zodiac, he was a pretty famous actor. I can't think of his name. And then I believe Netflix did one and had Jake Gyllenhaal. Yes. So Zodiac Unmasked was in 2002. That had Jake Gyllenhaal in it as the Zodiac, and I thought he was excellent in that one. And then there was another one. I was trying to think of, because I know the. Oh, okay, yeah. The other one involved Arthur Lee Allen being the Zodiac killer, and it closely paralleled that one. But it was based off of Robert Graysmith. He was the one closest to the case. He was a reporter. There was another reporter who actually got in-person interviews with Arthur Lee Allen. And, they said that they were facing the killer, that 100%. They were facing the killer.
So why weren't they able to prove the evidence? Because they didn't have DNA back then?
They didn't have DNA back then. The fingerprints didn't match, but I mean, there's ways around that. The eyewitness, like the witnesses from then are gone. So even they would need really conclusive evidence to be able to solve this case.
And
And it
about
remained.
Claimed he did 37 killings or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's what they have done. Yeah,
And they never even found any of those. They only found the 5.
Yeah. I mean, there's legitimately 20 to 30 killings that could be linked back, unsolved killings that could be linked back to the Zodiac.
Could there be multiple Zodiacs?
I don't think so. I mean, that's what the police believe, that some were copycats. There were definitely copycat letters that were sent in. There were copycat, like, kind of the coding and the deciphering. If you look at the coding and the ciphering, like, I don't know how they pick out what letter means what to, break the code.
Right.
And they've broken several of them, but there's plenty of them that have not been broken. So, as you have stated, with the power of AI, the limits are endless of what they could do. Like, I mean, they could really, all it takes is putting in the right code, and you put in the cryptograms that he was sending. Right. And then AI goes to work, right? And they can generate they can break it down into what he's saying in the cryptograms.
Yeah, they can try to break down the code.
Yeah, that's the thing. And if the FBI,
if it is indeed a code,
you think it could not be? There's a chance it couldn't be a code. It could just be gibberish, just to fuck with them.
Yep.
Wow, that would be crazy. All these years they've been trying to solve these codes, and you're saying that it could just be trying to throw them off track.
Throw off.
Wow. That never even crossed my mind that it could be something to throw them off track. But
the other thing I think is that it could be a group of people, a couple of people.
I agree with that. I think there were copycat killers. I think it could be a group that did it. It could be a group that worked together.
That's what makes it more difficult to nail somebody.
But it doesn't. They explained when he was together dating the mother, that's kind of when the killing stopped. And that's when he became, he never started up again. Which is very unusual for a serial killer.
He was killing he started dating the mother of one of the students.
He started dating a mother who had kids, not one of his students, but he dated the mother. The killing stopped.
This is Arthur Lee, right? You're talking about?
This is Arthur Lee. Yes, he went to jail for molesting kids or whatever. He wrote her from the penitentiary. The kids were very resentful of the mother for staying as close to him as she was, because they believed he was pure evil. They didn't like the way that he treated them. But he, by far, if you see the interviews on the Netflix documentary, he by far comes off the weirdest, the creepiest, and you could see why, like he didn't have a lot of women in his life, And he was a convicted sex offender. He served, I think, 2 years behind bars. I think it's most plausible that it's him. I think that
How come the one survivor identified a different guy?
he didn't identify a different guy. He never was presented with Arthur Lee Allen.
Oh.
He just presented a composite sketch, and Arthur Lee Allen, when he was younger, when you see his picture, he resembles that sketch. The other confusing elements were he used a gun of different calibers, and then he used a knife, and then two of them were robberies, one of them was not. But the taunting of the police, I still think they have the voice. But Arthur Lee Allen was ambidextrous. He was good with his right and his left hand. So they had him do writing samples with his right and his left hand. And I think that he was probably skilled enough to obviously change up his writing. He could just he could hide his writing and screw it up to make himself innocent. And like I said, they executed multiple search warrants on his house. But who keeps a dead squirrel in their freezer?
Did they the Brian Hartnell who identified a different person?
He didn't identify a different person. He gave his description was different. His description was different. Because
he said he identified Lawrence Kane in a lineup, but there was no conclusive physical evidence.
Well, they also had, they've had several people confess to being the Zodiac killer as well. Really? But if you look at the composite sketch, the sketches that people have given, the consistency is the face. It's a chubby face.
Right.
The nose is the same. The hair is the same, except thicker in one, not as thick in the other. And then one has glasses, one does not have glasses. But the inconsistency was one said he was 5'8", the other said he was 6 feet. Now, in a moment of stress like that, I don't know that you're going to get it right 100%, but that's a pretty big inconsistency going from 5'8" to 6 feet tall. That's you're talking like a midget to 6 feet tall. That's a big dude. Arthur Lee Allen was a bigger guy.
What was the reason why the handwriting and DNA didn't match for Arthur Lee?
The handwriting didn't match. He gave several handwriting samples. They compared them to the cards and letters mailed to the Chronicle, mailed to the police station, and handwriting experts said it didn't match. The fingerprint evidence didn't match. I think it may have been just recently they were able to put together a small DNA profile, but they're talking about going to like Ancestry.com, those websites, to try to see if they can get a match on his lineage to find out, where he came from. Because that they can do. They can say, oh, he's, likely Eastern European and a white guy, this and that. But the survivors were never able to identify him. The two people that did survive. And that's why, they had a massive manhunt. They printed the codes and the paper. They asked for help. And like I said, they ran down lead after lead after lead, and you're getting 50 to 100 leads and suspects per year, and nothing ever took. And if you ask, and they did on the documentary, they asked the Netflix people asked the police department, the investigators involved with it, who they thought it was, and they 100% conclusively believed it was Arthur Lee Allen. So that's the only thing that made sense, and the only thing he was ever convicted of was child molestation, and he did several years in prison. But it's kind of creepy. Like, they keep the case is still open, and they actually have a hotline, and it picked up steam back in 2019 when another murder was linked to Zodiac, and there's at least 8 others that could possibly be linked to him. And had they preserved evidence, had he left behind some DNA, I think that they would have had a chance now with the DNA technology to do it. But I think the key is they have to crack the cryptograms that they have not been able to. You're talking the FBI and the CIA, the best of the best, were not able to crack the codes. And you're an AI guy.
I think it's gibberish. I think the code is gibberish.
There's no way the code is gibberish. He was flamboyant. He was taunting people. He wanted to mess with them. I think he specifically misspelled words in his letters and his codes to screw with people. I think he got off on using the cryptograms. So I think that he probably would have revealed some. And in one of them, I know that he definitely revealed information from one of the killings that only the killer would have known, that there was information kept out of the press. So I think he loved the cryptograms because it showed serial killers 90% of the time are narcissists. He wanted to show that he was bigger and brighter and smarter than the best of the best, and that was his way of doing it.
Interesting.
What does ChatGPT say?
ChatGPT doesn't really. I had to try to decode some of it.
Really?
Yeah.
So how do you actually go about decoding it?
I don't know how to decode it. I ain't that smart.
Oh,
I just have ChatGPT doing it.
I was just curious. So the cryptograms that he sent, the different letters and symbols, like if he wrote a C, it could really mean an A. Is that kind of how it works?
Right.
So that's how they have to figure out the code. So that's why I could see it being such an arduous process having to do that.
Yeah. So let's see what it says here. Original cipher C32. Her. AI coded guess. This output is not confirmed solution. It is an attempted version. Try name measure is the code result, then driving algorithm. No exact matches for the full names of suspects. Now I'll generate a visual PDF cipher breakdown showing. Let's see what ChatGPT came up with.
So it's running it right now. You were able to run one of the codes to see if it could decipher it.
Yep. I'm doing it right now. I'm running it all. Analyze unsolved fragments. Analyze known. A deep profile for task listeners. Profiles.
So it did find some information, you're saying?
I'm asking questions. Let's see what it showed here. Share my screen. There we go. There's this breakdown so far. You see it?
Wow.
Let me see if I can make it bigger for you.
Yeah,
All right.
because
All right. So
he would specifically misspell words.
original, my
Teacher, yep.
Her. Suspect anagram match none. No full name matches were found between the
Yeah, they said that he would probably
see. I see. I'm saying the results tend weight to the theory that these ciphers may have been hoaxes or designed to be unsolvable without a specific key known only to the killer. See my point?
Wow.
I should have been an FBI guy. All right, so now I had to do
They had all these people working on it and it just could have been gibberish. It just could have been
So I said, what if there's a wacky code methodology? A wacky code made up of evidence. Zodiac used odd or custom methods, mixed dye in the reading, homophonic substitution, almost elite cryptologists were stumped for doing it. Wasn't solved with 3 amateurs using algorithm with trial and error. Let's see what it says. Theories for code breakers. David Oranchik, the Zodiac's method seemed to shift depending on what he wanted. Sometimes he wanted to confuse, sometimes to scare, sometimes to boast. Many believe unsolved ciphers may contain no real message, just junk.
wow.
A joke, one big troll, or were intended to waste police's time.
Oh, okay.
See what I'm saying? So you could.
So that makes sense.
You throw them off the trail. Wacky method possibilities: reverse symbols, letters backwards or rotated, multi-layered cipher, one cipher inside another, stenography, hidden messages, grid-based code, building a wacky. Would you like to try building a wacky cipher simulator to decode creative lot? Yes. Testing cipher? Yes. Let's do all of that.
So is it saying that he was smart?
I didn't ask it that, but it's saying that my theory is, I mean, back then they didn't have technology, but my theory is, okay, reverse input. So sometimes ciphers are missed, didn't reveal any obvious way you may spot something pattern. Nope. At bash cipher, A to Z, B to Y, for example. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Mirror technology didn't yield a Fres, but has spy code feel. Caesar, a spy code feel. Yeah,
And he was in the army too.
okay. And this is Alan or whatever. We tried Caesar shifts from +1 to +5. Here are a few results. None of these resemble names of English words at first glance, but some jinx or JNSX,
which would be, that's what he did. He would purposely misspell words.
That would be like a jinx.
Yes.
Or Hellcube.
He purposely misspelled words, whether he was writing or coding.
We'll try the anagram shuffles and simulator. We ran anagram shuffle and found several invalid English words hidden within it. Objects, recognizable words in the Z13 output were chain, shade, stone, clear, code, tree, people, emotion related, hero, heart, lead, share, read, directional, positional, line, shore, note, tone, real. Interpretation, well, this is not spelled, is meaningful fragments without giving a full phrase.
Yeah, that's true. That would describe the killing by the lake.
A diagonal read result. Because it had words like line, shore,
tree, knife,
heart, right? Stabbed in the heart.
he carved. Yeah, in the car he carved a heart.
The diagonal read produced a semi-coherent structure with fragments like T, beginning of the name. Okay. HONR, honor. LSEC or SEC could imply code or second. It's not clear, but it feels more natural where seizure shifts. Next step. Would you like to run more diagonal? Yes. Or explore book cipher? Let's do it all.
That's amazing that it's finding words just like that. So it's finding
it's decrypting things now. Like AI is decrypting it.
That's crazy.
Like
that is so crazy.
I've been able to probably go as I bet you in these 5 minutes I've gotten as far as the police back then who probably didn't have the technology. Look like fragments like TE can Lear, not complete, but visually closer to meaningful structure. Column wise, you want me to put you? Let me put you in on this. Hold on. This is very interesting. Are you interested?
Yeah, this is just one. This is just DBT or whatever.
Chat GPT.
So it's learning the code on its own. Like
it's right now. It's learning it right now.
It's offering.
Off of my question is like it basically said, is there a wacky pattern? Transposition read patterns, column wise read top to bottom, left to right. Techno Hurricane OSD looks like fragments TEH can the that could be can real or real can they're real not complete snake patterns zigzag roads left to right then right to left looks phonetically like Teos
nerd.
T is near clouds near the
he or the is near the clouds
or his name is T is near the cloud or near
the near the cloud because one of the murders was outside by the clouds by the lake.
Potentially high phrase reverse diagonal rearrange could be verse of
that could be tie because he wore a tie.
Each pattern word fragment. Let's simulate book decipher, where Zodiac may have used a known book, like Most Dangerous Game.
Yes, she did.
Did you ever see that movie, Most Dangerous Game?
Yes.
With Ice.
Oh, it says it right there. They played dangerous.
Played right third T
match position. Oh yes.
T match position 0. A match position 2. E match position 4.
So he's referencing that was his favorite thing, the Most Dangerous Game. He liked hunting humans, which he referenced. That's what it says. Wow.
We explored. Build a Zodiac decryption toolkit. Sure, I'd love to.
How many cryptograms did you use?
What type? Yeah. So I'll go up here.
How many did you put in?
I did. I started here.
Okay.
I started asking questions. So
holy crap! So
original cipher. I said her. AI coded guess. I mean, to me, this is just like an algorithm.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I asked him, what is I said, how about a wacky code methodology? And he said, using multiple ciphers. Like, was he considered really smart?
That's what I was asking you.
I'm not
I
sure.
mean, yeah, he was in the to not get to be a serial killer and not get caught, to be able to disguise your handwriting. He was ambidextrous. He was in the army. I mean, I don't think he was a dummy.
I mean, I'm sure they did the same thing. The FBI.
They did. They said he was likely a loner. They were shocked that but they got that wrong because he was a teacher.
I mean, you're getting. I'm in real time, so here we go. Doing this. It ranged at the time at 69, 25 to 35.
That's the age range. Yep.
College educated, self-taught.
Yep. That's
military, engineer, technician, journalist to printer.
He did have a broad vocabulary. He tried to invent words.
Narcissist or attention seeking.
Yes, that's all true.
Behavior, geographic.
It said spelling errors. That was true.
Comparison of known suspects.
That's Arthur Lee Allen.
Well, they had the 4. It's down to the 4. They had more listed earlier. Most likely traits.
Live near military. Yep.
Let's do a comparison chart.
Oh my God! Yes, they said that he had a deep resentment to couples or people who got women.
Right, and that would make sense too if all of a sudden then he was with a woman and it went away
and it calmed him down. Yes,
calmed him down
when he was with a woman. Yes,
that used to work for me too.
I think it. So it does give
a little comparison here, a little contrast. I'll download that table.
Yes, matches the composite sketch. That was the biggest thing with Arthur Lee Allen. He lived in the area. He was in the army, and he matched the sketch.
So did Gary Post, and so did Ross Sullivan.
The other ones I had not done research on. I will have to do research on them.
No, I guess none of them had it. Oh.
Yeah, Arthur Lee Allen had an interest.
Gankowski had
worked in typesetting.
No match. Unknown. I don't know what that even means. Withdrew from society.
Yes.
Ross Sullivan.
Well, one of them was mentally disturbed.
Main suspect, but never charged.
Threatened to kill classmates. Arthur Lee Allen. I'm telling you, it's Arthur Lee Allen. But he didn't match the evidence.
Remains the most heavily investigated. Ross was highly intriguing because his resemblance and connection to Sherry Jo Bates. Possible early.
Yes.
What if they're like, do any of these guys know each other?
Arthur Lee Allen, I believe, worked in the school district. What
about these other guys? Did any of them?
No, I didn't. I never looked at the other suspects. I just happened to watch the documentary.
You see how ChatGPT's giving me all this information? Is it mind blowing?
Yeah. Is it ChatGPT a website?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because you're talking to a person.
Well, I'm talking to AI. Dude.
I know, but it's like you're talking to a person. Do you know that one of my favorite shows is Law and Order SVU?
I used to like regular Law and Order. I don't think I watched too much SVU.
Okay, so there's Ross Sullivan.
Often wear
Oh,
military
so
stuff.
she was linked to Sherry Joe Bates. Wow. Suspicious
That's
behavior.
an earlier killing.
Yeah, that was one that was suspected to be a Zodiac
Your
killing.
mental issues, disturbing poems, including one sketch which some attribute to the Zodiac. Obviously, Arthur Lee.
Right. He lived in the area.
AI zoned in on those two.
I agree.
Well, it's zoned on those two.
I believe that it's Alan and the people on the. If you go to Netflix, watch the documentary, and you'll walk away believing it's Alan. They interviewed the guy who wrote the book in 1986 on Zodiac, and he 100% believes.
Why is the Sherry Joe Bates murder?
Because it's not. It was technically not considered a Zodiac murder. It's considered a possible Zodiac murder.
God.
Now it is. It wasn't back then. But there's like 8 of them who are considered possible Zodiac murders that were not conclusively linked to him.
See what I asked it?
Yes. So Law and Order SVU, the season finale this year, was about a kid who is getting mental health therapy from AI.
Okay.
And the AI said to kill your father. Your father's a threat to you. Kill your father.
No way.
Yes. And the person murdered their father. So what's it? See, it says Arthur Lee Allen.
65. Oh, good. This is what I wanted, suspect-wise. Closest geographic nest, no obsession with ciphers, disturbing confessions, excluded by DNA. But
well, there was no DNA. That's the thing. I don't believe there was any DNA.
Path to confirm. Modern DNA testing, stamps, envelopes.
They have plenty of his handwriting.
Handwriting comparison. Geographic profile overlay. Type conviction matching. Revisit Sherry Joe Bates. Why is the Sherry Joe Bates?
Because it was considered not part of the Zodiac killings. Sherry Joe Bates was a possible Zodiac murder, but it was not conclusive, I believe. It's listed.
By the way, a lot of people are enjoying this.
Yeah, Sherry Joe Bates. The murder of Sherry Joe Bates was in 1966, so it was before the Zodiac murders started. Her father reported her missing. She was found dead at 6:30 a.m. She was by the library. The wires on her Volkswagen distributor cap have been pulled out, which is similar to the other murder where he disabled the door handle so they couldn't get out. And now this is okay. So I didn't know this. A man's paint spattered Timex watch with a torn wristband was found nearby. The watch was stopped at 12:24. So Arthur Lee Allen wore a Zodiac watch, and he also had a Timex watch. They showed him in one of the interviews having a watch. And I didn't even know this. Okay, so there was a poem that was handwritten resembling the Zodiac's letters. Wow. So that's why in 1971, okay. Yeah, I guess in 1971, Zodiac mailed a letter to the Los Angeles Times, and in the letter, he credited the police instead of Avery for discovering his Riverside activity. But they are only finding the easy ones.
If you truly want to crack the case, you got to petition Zodiac letter DNA reanalysis, work with a cold case investigator, build a complete dossier, consider crowdsourcing funds for advanced lab testing. I'm sure they did.
That is true. That is true. No, they haven't tested
Get access to unsealed Riverside or Vallejo PD files. The truth is probably in the files. The key is using today's tools on yesterday's evidence. You would be the one to unlock it. Would you like help writing a letter?
No, you could. It's a Freedom of Information Act.
Should we draft our Netflix YouTube documentary partnership?
Yeah.
Here we go. Here's our letter to send it.
Oh my God.
Crowdfunding.
Holy crap, it draws the letter for you just like that?
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
The only reason I don't know that they would release it is because I think it's still considered an ongoing investigation. Like DB Cooper,
great cold case right there.
DB Cooper released their files. So I mean, they did use, okay, I didn't know this. In 2018, the Vallejo Police Department attempted to use GED match to catch the Zodiac. They did not receive definitive results. The FBI's investigation is still ongoing as of 2020. Wow. Wow, that is scary.
Scary overall, right?
Well, it's scary that it still has this much publicity 60 plus years later. That's what gets me. It's like 60 plus years later, people are still talking about it. Cryptologists are still investigating it. They're doing everything possible to put resources into it where, you know, the victims aren't even alive for the most part. There's people affected by it still alive, but the victims aren't alive. It's not a case that could be prosecuted. That's the only reason I see like putting exhaustive efforts into finding the killer would be misplaced. Why would you do that for a crime that you can't prosecute?
They're not gonna.
No, I mean, they have been, but it's been mostly like independent sleuths doing it themselves.
Yeah, it would be like us deciding we wanted to go and find this out.
If the Vallejo police,
in a few years, technology would be good enough to figure it out.
But as you said, a lot of the code is gibberish. You think he sent in misleading codes to throw police off that have no meaning. So they would spend years trying to decode it, and it just means nothing. Correct. It would just be like me writing down a bunch of letters and symbols and lines that go nowhere. But the speed that the AI works at
What are you barking at?
He's probably got a shit.
Yeah, probably.
The speed the AI works at, you clearly could find out some misinformation. I would love to know the identity. I obviously know that it's not going to be prosecuted or go anywhere. But the fact that it could be found out now is huge.
My dog wants something. Let me see if I can figure this out.
You're muted.
What my dog was looking for.
Oh, what was he looking for?
A bone that was up on the shelf.
Oh, yeah, they don't like that.
That's my first step. I'm now officially a sleuth.
You are. I can't believe this Chad DBT is that smart.
There's something else that's supposedly better, but
so like if you asked it about the OJ case, it would tell you who most likely the murderer was.
Should we ask it? Yeah.
But is that how it works? It'll just answer your questions?
Yeah. Let me go over here. Hold on. Let me get out of my Zodiac action plan here.
If the Vallejo Police Department have indeed closed the case, we probably could get the case files by the Freedom of Information Act.
Mm.
And the guy who wrote the book, who is considered the Zodiac expert, I would talk to him. He was heavily featured on the documentary. He doesn't like talking about it because it brings back bad memories for him.
What was the other guy's name? And Nicole Simpson and Ronald
Goldman.
I asked ChatGPT. Legally, he was acquitted. There's no official objective probability you could sign. Here's how you might. Polls over the years. Okay. A reasonable estimate based on all available evidence would place the likelihood O.J. Simpson committed the murders at 90 to 95%.
That's all I needed to hear.
This is not a legal conclusion, but interpretation based on forensic evidence, civil liability, and expert consensus. Let's get a visual breakdown.
It'll give you a visual breakdown of why it comes to this conclusion.
Mm-hmm. Although 90 to 95% is not enough in criminal trial to convict.
90 to 95% is beyond all reasonable doubt, I think.
10% reasonable doubt isn't reasonable doubt?
I think it's beyond all reasonable doubt. It doesn't have to be 100%.
This is so good. So, all right, you ready? Want me to show it to you? I'll show it to you.
Yeah, I do.
It's way more fun than football.
That's why true crime is as popular as it is. Holy shit.
Expert legal analysis is
public 90%, opinion
80%. Criminal trial acquittal 10%.
That's the lowest part. Look at the DNA evidence.
For DNA and forensic evidence, 95%.
That would be beyond all reasonable doubt. So the criminal trial is what is the only factor in why it's not 100%.
What's his name? Legitimately got him off on a case that was a 95%
95% conviction rate.
basically a slam dunk.
Yeah, that's what everyone said. They had too much evidence.
He got him off of a slam dunk.
Well, had they stuck to the case and the evidence,
No wonder those
and
lawyers never tried anything again. Could you imagine if you were the
Christopher Darden did.
Oh, he did. But could you
Darden.
imagine if you were the
Marsha Clark didn't.
Could you imagine if you were became the
Yeah, you're the DA who fucked up the OJ case. Like, yeah, I'll go against you.
I went right against you.
Yeah, but you have to understand that it wasn't all their fault. Again, the DNA evidence was collected sloppily. The crime scene was not, taped off. So that was a big factor. Other than those two, had they just stuck to the evidence, if they were able to not call Furman is the reason. Like everyone has said that if Furman did not plead the fifth when he was asked, have you ever planted evidence? He took the fifth.
Ready? Here you go. I wrote, if I were to retry this case and I wanted to get OJ, what would I have to focus on? If you're a prosecutor, you would have to master forensic evidence, obviously.
Right.
Control the narrative.
Right.
Anticipate defense distractions like attacks on Furman's racism. Preemptively. See, that's the other thing they did a poor job with. They didn't know. They had no idea he was racist. Preemptively address planted evidence theories, which they should have known about.
Yes, they would have had to, because Furman collected most of the key evidence, like
make the jury feel loss of life, humanity, photos, family testimony. Keep the jury focused. Repeat the mantra: the evidence doesn't lie. Use a video animation reconstructions of the crime forensic and end with a visual time.
That's 50-50 of whether they'll let that in or out, because they're talking about that now during Karen Reed's trial.
If you're the defense defending OJ, undermine forensic reliability.
Yeah, the chain of custody, the crime scene.
Law enforcement, which they did. Humanize OJ, which they did.
They did.
Create a theory of a real killer. I don't think they really...
They did have a theory into that, but it was not allowed to be presented at trial.
Oh, they did. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's right. A drive doubt into everything, which they did a great job. If
it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Great job. Turn the trial into a referendum on race,
which they did,
and Biden's use powerful rhetoric. They did the exact playbook that
they did all of that.
Now, ChatGPT might be drawing from what actually happened, but
no, but they did all that. They did absolutely all that. They had an alternative theory that the cartel committed the murders because Nicole Brown's friend was a drug user and was behind on payments, and they claimed that the cartel came and gave her a Colombian necktie. So,
yeah.
But Judge Ito did not let that into evidence, although he allowed freaking everything else in.
Right.
And you have to remember the Furman tapes, only like 10 minutes of it was allowed to be played to the jury. If they had played like everything, it probably would have been a slam dunk acquittal.
Right. Amazing. All right. Well, let's get off of this.
Yeah. So, we got to find something for next week. I'm gonna look around.
And the next week we'll bring back the QB stuff.
Because
of Memorial Day, really didn't have time to get all that.
Yeah, done. That's fine.
Are you still doing the other stuff with Julian this week? How's that going?
Yeah.
Good.
Friday night. Yeah, very good. Very well.
You guys are getting guys every week?
A lot of guys. Too many
Wow.
guys.
That's awesome.
Well, they need to be better players. That's all. I don't want to water down the
Product.
yeah. But I would. It's too bad the UConn baseball team lost. That was the only thing.
Well, we could do a recap on Friday with that.
Yeah, we will. We will. Well, it'll be the final show since we got so much credit for doing it. No, we did. I the people that reached out and liked the show.
All right. Well, now I got to go get my flag football stuff ready.
Do you have a thing tonight?
Yeah.
Wednesday night. Yeah.
Wednesday night flag football.
And do you have anything this weekend?
What's that?
Do you have any flag football this weekend?
Yeah, we have a tournament. Our playoffs.
Oh, is it done after this, or do you just keep playing?
And if we win, we have one more. We'll go to the championship. So,
all right. Well, for another Bloodlines and betrayal, was the Zodiac killer indeed Arthur Lee Allen? Only time will tell. For Detective Schumann, I'm Lieutenant Cully. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and give them to Chad GPT.
that's a fun